Welcome to the Friendly Moms Club podcast with Jen and Carly. We're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed.
We are creating a safe space to bring moms together, lighten the heaviness, and find joy in the everyday moments. Together, we will share our own experiences of being new moms while navigating the topics we wish more people talked about.
Join us every Monday to hear us skip the small talk and dive right into the uncomfortable.
Good morning. Happy Mom Day.
Good morning. Happy Mom Day. Hello.
And we are so happy to be here talking with you today.
Thrilled. Absolutely thrilled.
Always. We always are. We are, if you haven't noticed in the first few episodes, we like to talk.
We do.
It's something our husbands probably love and hate about us.
Oh gosh, I talk so much. And you know what's extra annoying is that my mom does the same thing and it drives me bonkers. And then when my husband Jeff gets mad at me because I literally do not stop talking, I'm like, I get it. Like, I get it.
It is scary when you realize you're growing up to be your parents and you see those things in yourself. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Mom. But we've had this conversation in person, so I know she won't be offended. But my sister and I are constantly, we'll say something, we'll be like, that was just like Mom. Exactly. Oh no, we are getting older. It is coming.
I actually said in my wedding vows that I'm glad that my mom and my now husband get along so well because like I'm becoming
that's
her.
you.
Yeah, I was like, I am becoming her. So I'm glad you guys get along because
slowly but surely every year there's just a bit more.
Yeah.
And like the sayings and mannerisms and
I even like she groans every time she stands up and I do that now. I can't get up without being like, oh, or if I pick something up, I'm like, oh.
I know. It started for me in pregnancy and then just didn't stop. Now I still do it. It's like my body is just, I don't know.
It was my goal when I worked to not groan every time I did something when I was pregnant, but whatever.
I would be like, I was like kind of hidden behind a shelving unit and I dropped a piece of paper. So I had to actually bend down to pick it up. And I was like 8 months pregnant at this time, maybe 7. And all of a sudden, one of the girls I work with is like, are you okay? And I was like, oh, you heard that, did you? She's like, it's kind of hard to miss. And I was like, I just need to pick a piece of paper up off the ground. And she could hear it. Like I was so loud at picking up a piece. It was just
very cute.
It's a low moment of your life. Cute. I'm glad she cared about me, but I was just embarrassed.
It's embarrassing when you make sounds and you don't realize people are listening.
Yeah. So let's go on to our topic today.
Let's do it.
What are we talking about? Why don't you...
Today we're talking about little babies, newborns, what to expect with those cute little potatoes with newborns.
Yeah. And for the purposes of today's episode, a newborn, we're going to talk about like the first 1 to 2 months. Mm-hmm. When you look online, it's kind of vague, different definitions of what a newborn is. So for this purposes, we're just doing up to like the first month or 2. When you bring a baby home, what to actually expect. Like, what's that going to look like? Because I can tell you, it did not look like what I thought in my head. It is a wild ride.
So you're telling me I don't have a newborn anymore, even though he's 6.5 months?
I'm telling you, you don't have a newborn anymore. I think you just have a baby now.
I got a baby.
You got a baby.
He's a baby. He's no longer a potato.
He's
still a potato. He's kind of like flesh colored like a potato. He's very pasty. And he just...
He's
sits
getting
there.
His little tummy's growing, so it's just like a little potato.
Oh, he's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about them when they were little things.
Yeah, some of the things that we just didn't know, or it was just very different than we thought.
Very shocking.
And this goes for not only us, but this was like our spouses too, because there were some things that happened that my husband was like, what? Did she just make that noise? Or did she just do that? And I was like, I know, like mind blowing the things that happened.
So first, they're noisy.
They are
so noisy.
And we're not just talking about during the day.
Like, and not screaming. We're not sure they scream, but like...
Yeah, they do. That's
noises.
Different. But they just like grunt and they move around and they move their legs. They do this weird like...
The dolphin kicks?
Yeah, dolphin kicks. And they just bring their feet up and slam them down. Anytime we'd try to put Jordan in her bassinet, that's what she would do. And it just like... Then you're trying to sleep and that's all you can hear are these like kicks happening. And you're like, what is she doing?
They're noisy little sleepers. They kind of sound like they're not breathing and choking. Like they're like, like, I don't know what these noises are. They sound like an old man.
I don't know what the noises are either. And we talked about this in our first episode about how we met. What bonded us is that we all tried to do something else to deal with the noises because it's really hard to deal with because when
they're sleeping,
you are so wired to every noise a baby's going to make because you're like, oh, do I need to feed them? Are they still breathing? Are they alive? And your body is just like 10 out of 10
on alert,
hyperactive, aware. So all these noises means you can't sleep and you need to sleep. So it's just this huge battle of like, what are you going to do? And yeah, earplugs, headphones.
I was a headphone gal. Our friend was earplugs. You were
Yeah.
put
I
the
just-
baby on dad's
I
side.
moved the baby to the other side of the room. And
rid
you
of the
just got to
problem.
find what works for you. I mean, maybe you can sleep with it. That is great. We just found that we couldn't. So
My husband could. Yeah, that's another podcast.
things your husband can deal with with newborns
And
that
not
you
here.
cannot.
Exactly.
Because it's very different what happens to you and what happens to your spouse when
Yeah.
you have a baby. Like whoever actually had the baby has a different experience. And that's just because of hormonals, like what's going on in your own body. You are going to respond differently. And you might
Defo.
have to have that conversation with your spouse. Like, maybe you can handle that, but I cannot. So
Exactly.
we'll get to that.
Put them
too.
in charge. Speaking of spouses, babies are also gassy.
So gassy. The first few times I heard some of the farts coming out of little Jordan, like
They're
she
like
just
adult-sized farts.
like we were talking about these little babies that you bring home that are a few weeks old that I would actually look at my husband and be like, was that you?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, I swear it was her. I'm like, but look how cute and little she is. Like there's no way that noise came
Yeah.
from her. And he'd be like, I promise it was not me.
We were babysitting my friend's baby when he was 3 weeks old, and he was in his cute little bouncer, and he's just like laying there doing nothing. And all of a sudden he rips like the biggest fart. And this is like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Well, I guess he's 4. So 4.5 years ago. And this was my husband's like first real night with a newborn. And he just looks at me and he goes, was that the baby? I was like, yeah, like he could out fart you any day.
Yeah.
It was wild.
It's actually quite funny. Like you just have to embrace it. Like it's hilarious.
I love
and you
it.
laugh. You're gonna giggle like little kids, especially when you're not sleeping and you're drinking a
Mm-hmm.
lot of coffee to stay awake and they're just gonna let out these farts and you're just gonna you just laugh. It's just hilarious.
And the sneezes, they're so dramatic. And the hiccups.
Oh yeah, we went through a lot of hiccuping.
Yeah.
And then I'm Googling, of course, like
Yeah.
is hiccuping normal? Is that not normal if they hiccup? And all these noises and gases are normal. Their
Normal.
body's just
Yeah.
figuring itself out and it's just gonna be letting gases out from every direction.
angle. And the burps. Oh man, like adult size burps, adult size farts. Like I'm impressed.
It is kind of impressive
It's not
what
cute
they can do.
when my husband does it, but it's very cute.
I know,
when the
double
newborn does
standards.
it. Yeah.
As long as the baby does it, it's okay.
Very cute.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they do smell. We're not saying they don't smell because sometimes you're like, whoo,
They stinky.
whoo, it'll smell. But it's all part of a healthy, good process happening in their body. So you just embrace the gases.
Yeah. And they're also potatoes.
Yeah.
They literally, when they come out, they do nothing. The only thing they do is burp and fart. And then sometimes they stretch and it's really cute.
I think like,
And the newborn scrunch.
Yeah.
But their little stretches are so dramatic. They're like,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's adorable. But other than that, they're not going to do a lot. And I don't know what I expected. Like, obviously, they weren't going to be out, like coming out.
Sprinting.
Yeah, I don't know what I expected. But it's also a lot of work to care for potato. You'd think
Yeah.
it wouldn't be. But for them not doing much.
They do so much. They do nothing, but they require so much care.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't
No, it
line
doesn't
up with
line
what
up.
you would think. I mean, they're so adorable when they do nothing.
Yeah.
But they just really don't do a lot. So those first couple months, you're just like hanging out with them.
Yeah.
And they're not really too interactive. They don't open their eyes a lot. Like they sleep a lot.
They only smile when they're sleeping.
Yeah.
Gassy.
Which I also Googled that. I'm like, what is happening? When she falling asleep and doing nothing, is she smiling? Like, anyways, again, things just working. They're trying to figure everything out and she still does it sometimes.
Yeah. There's not much to do in those first few days. Well, first few weeks, except for tummy time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
stinking tummy time drives me bonkers.
it is so hard.
They hate it.
And you're going to see all these things like, if you're anything like us, we followed all these mom accounts on Instagram to like learn and get all these good tips. And what some of them said, like your baby at certain ages need to be doing X amount of tummy time
Yeah, that
minutes.
wasn't
And I was
happening.
like, holy crap. It was terrifying. I wasn't anywhere close to it. And I definitely didn't technically start tummy time right away. Because when you look, they say you can start it as soon as your baby is home.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think about tummy time till like weeks later. But tummy time doesn't just mean like putting them on the floor on their tummy. So that's where I was wrong in my thought. It also just means like, if you feed them and then you lay them down on your chest. That's tummy time.
It's good.
So
And you actually don't want to lay them on a mat until they have a little bit more control of their head.
Yes.
Which I think for most babies around 1 month-ish, until
Yeah,
they can kind of lift it a little bit. So like early stages of tummy time is going to be either them propped up on like a nursing pillow or having them on your chest and leaning back.
Yep.
And it's just, you want to help prevent that flat spot on the back of their head, and then also get them to start working on those little neck muscles that will help them eventually lift their head. But
so it is really important.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do, and it is gonna.
I used to put it on my to-do list to remind myself, and then I'd feel guilty about it all day. Like, oh, we still have to do tummy time.
We would message each other like, did you do tummy time today? What did you do? How the heck did you fit it in? You're like, okay, all you need to do is feed the baby. Baby needs to sleep. Like, you don't have to do a lot in this day, especially in the potato phase. But when you try to add in tummy time, it seems like a big deal.
Yeah.
It seems like a hard thing to add in.
Especially they don't like tummy time, so then they're crying.
Yeah.
They're trying to tell you, I don't like tummy time.
I know.
Which brings us to the crying.
Yeah, this is how they communicate with you. And it is hard to listen to. But the way that it made me feel better is I had read somewhere that they are used to being inside of you, getting everything on demand. Like literally anytime they wanted something, it would just happen.
And now they have to wait 0.2 seconds and they cry.
Yes, and they freak out because of it. But they're just used to getting everything whenever they want. It was like pre-done for them all the time. So now they're living in the outside world and they have to ask for things. And they don't know other than how to cry to ask for things. So it's a lot for them to learn. You think about yourself if you are used to something. Like
I cry about it when I don't get my way.
If your husband doesn't bring you coffee in bed anymore, you would be like, what?
I know.
I need this now. I'm used to getting it now, and you did not do it. Like, what is happening?
There's been tears over it now.
So we
Puts
get
in the
it.
wrong creamer. No.
So you have to try to think about that. When your baby is crying, they're just trying to ask for something. And
Or tell you something.
it doesn't necessarily mean anything negative. They're just like, hey, I'm hungry. How am I going to tell them that? Cry. And that's logical to them. That is how they can try to tell you these things and ask for them.
And
How to clean their bum.
Yeah. I remember people saying like, you'll learn different cries that your baby has if they're hungry or if they're tired. And I was like, that's no way. And now I can hear him like through, like we live in a townhouse, so I can be on a separate floor and I'm like, oh, he's hungry. Like run up with the boobies. Like I know these cries. And I mean, he's 6.5 months. So you don't know that right away.
I was going to say, let's clarify that because it is not something your baby is just going to come out and you're going to be like, oh, I heard that noise. That means
his
this.
hungry cry.
I just know deep down that sound means this. Whoever says that it's not
Lying.
true. They are lying to you
Yeah.
because it takes a long time to try to figure out your baby's needs and wants and wishes and when they need things and what each sound means.
Yeah.
If you could even figure it out. Sometimes I'm still lost. We just had a very, very terrible weekend away. And
true.
like it was just awful. And she screamed for all through the night in a hotel room. Absolutely awful. And I had no idea what she wanted. And then these thoughts kept coming through like, but I'm her mom. Like I gave birth to her. I should have this like internal radar that knows what each sound means. And I have no idea.
I don't think she knew what she wanted.
I don't think she knew what she wanted either. But like, I just hated that. Everyone's always like, oh, but you're just going to know.
Yeah,
like,
you're their mom.
you gave birth to this being.
Yes.
You are going to know what everything
Follow
means.
your gut, your instinct.
And you just don't.
You don't know.
And it actually made me mad. My husband and I got in a little argument about it because I was asking him, like, what should we do? I don't remember what was happening, but I was like, I don't know what to do. What should we do? He's like, well, you gave birth to her. Like, what is your body telling you? And I was like, no freaking idea. I was like, that is BS. Doesn't mean anything. Like, I have no idea. I'm like, I'm Googling things. I don't know anything. And I freaked out at him because, postpartum's hard. It wasn't his fault because that's what he had been told, is that moms just have this intuition. And maybe some moms do, and maybe they do figure out the cries like on day 1 or week 1. Like, amazing. You are amazing. But for all us other regular mom out there, like, it's going to take a while.
Just us average moms.
Yeah, just our average moms. And like, even my husband is now figuring out what the different cries mean. And he's like, oh, I think this means this. I'm like,
He figured it out for Henry. Remember, he was watching him the other day while we were starting our podcast journey. And my son Henry started getting a little fussy, and then her husband Anad goes, oh, do you think he is maybe tired? And I'm like, oh my goodness, it is nap time. I was like, nice one. Like, nailed it.
So it doesn't have, you don't have to give birth to have some of these, like, trying to figure out the baby. It applies to all parents. And it's good if both parents or whoever's in the picture can kind of start figuring out what the baby needs. Like maybe you have older kids and they're going to start being like, Mom, I think they need this. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, because spoiler, nobody knows what they're doing. Well, maybe some people know, but we didn't know what we were doing.
No.
And based on our conversations we've had with a lot of fellow parents,
Yeah.
nobody really knows what they're doing. There's no rule book.
Yeah.
You're learning, your baby's learning, and parenting is hard. And you know what? I think being a baby is hard. Like it looks so like nice and cushy, but based on their cries, they're having a hard time too.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to regulate everything. And some of the stuff that's going to happen, you are going to have no idea what it means. And like Jordan just got so many different skin things happening. And she would end up crying sometimes. I'm like, is it because you have like now this new acne and cradle? Is that why you're crying? Is that uncomfortable for you? But I didn't know what any of these things meant. And when you Google it, it's super normal. Like babies go through a ton of changes on their like actual physical body. And I was not prepared for it. I guess I was like, I knew some of the terms like cradle cap. Like,
And you knew babies got baby acne, but when you actually see it, well, maybe you didn't know that, but they do get they're very cute little baby acne.
But some babies don't, and some babies do. Like,
Yeah, Henry has had beautiful porcelain skin from the second he came out, which is hilarious because both my husband and I have terrible skin, and he just came out this perfect porcelain little doll.
of course he did.
I know. But yeah, and it starts with newborn rash. So babies, when they're in utero, they're living in water. And then they come out and they have to get used to all these sights and sounds. And then also their skin has to get used to surviving without all that water around them. And their skin actually has like a little freak out and they get this little like bumpy rash. It looks like it's irritating to them because it almost looks like an allergic reaction. I don't know if Jordan had it at all.
Yeah.
It's like little tiny bumps. And at work, people are always ringing their call bell. They're like, something's wrong with my baby. And it's just newborn rash 99.9% of the time. But it does look way more alarming than it actually is. But yeah, and it can be their whole body. And
And I think that's just hard when they're crying all the time. You're like, is it something that's the physical?
Yeah.
Like, is there something I can do to help her face? Like, Jordan got baby acne so bad. And I'm like, at what point do you want to like make a doctor's appointment? Do I need to do something? Is it going to go away? Like, I read online it goes away, but how long? Like, no one tells you how long. It's just these things you really have to figure out on your own. So you have to just remember that a lot of these things are normal, that they're very, very common to get. All of these different types of skin rashes, cradle cap, dry skin. And some of it looks scary.
yeah, cradle cap can look real funky sometimes.
Yeah. But there's different things you can do, different methods to try to help it. Every baby reacts differently. Like we in our little group chat would just message, be like, hey, how did it work for you? And I bought this special like little oil thing. And so I just gave it to a friend that her baby was doing it. I was like, oh, here, this helped Jordan. Maybe it'll help you. And which is a great thing about Mom Friends is that you can have some of these conversations because you just take pictures and send them. And then you'll get a whole bunch
pictures.
of like,
You said
life
cradle
hacks.
crap pictures. Cradle crap. Cradle crap.
It does kind of look gunky and like it's not the most attractive thing and it like flakes and
It comes
and then
off in sheets.
it gets in things. Yeah, it's not pretty, but it's common. It happens to lots of babies.
For sure.
Yeah.
What's next? Babies, they like to eat.
They
who
love
doesn't?
to eat. I mean, my baby takes after me. She gets hangry now. Like, especially if my husband and I are eating and she doesn't have food now, she gets hangry.
Yeah,
and I
the
think she
solid
was like
food.
that right from the beginning. Like, and as soon as they decide they are hungry, it's 0 to 100.
Yeah.
There's no like, and then they start. It's just like they decide they want to eat, and
And if you miss those little early cues of them like being cute, nibbling on their hands, and they all kind of have their own little cues. If you miss that and they get to like the hungry phase, I feel bad for you.
yeah, it's brutal.
They get angry. But yeah, they eat all the time. When they're newborns, they're eating every like hour, 2 hours. Sometimes like you don't really want to go more than every 3-4 hours. Sometimes they cluster feed, which is when they're going through a little growth spurt and they just want to eat all day.
Yeah. And this goes against everything that everyone has ever said. You will have to wake your baby up to eat. I don't know how many times I woke up Jordan to eat, and I was like, no, they always say never wake a sleeping baby. Like that is ingrained in me from, I don't even know where from. I don't know, movies, parents,
somebody's
grandparents.
grandma.
Like someone said this a million times over, you never wake a sleeping baby. I had to wake her so much to feed her. And she lost weight in the hospital. So she was at the benchmark. Like if she lost too much weight, we were going to have to go back to the hospital. So I was like, no, she needs to eat. So we kept having to wake her up and she'd fall asleep feeding and we'd like have to basically baby torture her to get her awake.
Tickle her little feet.
Yeah. So you're like tickle her. We'd get cold wet wipes and put them on her skin. And I felt so bad doing it.
Girls
but
gotta
she
eat.
needed to eat and she needed to gain weight. So we had to wake her up and do little baby torture to get her to stay awake
Baby
to actually
torture.
feed. That's what it feels like.
know.
I'd be crying, be like,
It's
I
hard.
feel so bad. I'm sorry. As I'm like, try to get her to wake up. And it was a 2-person job. And Nat would be doing that while I was trying to breastfeed.
Yeah.
And
feeding is hard, no matter how you're feeding your baby, but especially if you're trying to learn how to breastfeed. It is, I work in labor and delivery. I help teach people how to breastfeed, and I still struggled until maybe like a month ago. So it took the first 5 months to really solidify breastfeeding. It's hard.
and how many times did you want to quit?
Oh, all the time. And my thing is, I had an amazing supply. I probably could have fed like 7
Triplets.
babies. Yeah, a lot. So it was a mind game for me because I had so much milk and I felt so grateful for that I didn't want to give up because supply wasn't an issue for me. It was the actual like latching, and both our babies had tongue ties. So your baby could have like an oral restriction as well. So yeah,
You just don't know why it's not working. And for me, baby could latch. Like after we got the tongue tie dealt with, she was latching. I was like, this is great. Breastfeeding is going to be a breeze now. And guess what? It was not. And I didn't have milk. My milk basically never came in. And I worked with a lactation consultant, which if you have the means to use a lactation consultant, I highly recommend them because they just make you feel a million times better about your journey, especially if you find one that's not pushy about breastfeeding. Like for me, it was just never going to happen. Like I tried very, very hard for months and it really wore on my mental health. But my lactation consultant never said like you have to breastfeed. It was fed is best. Whatever is going to do to keep your baby growing, gaining weight, happy as can be. Like that's what we're going for.
and really like a reputable lactation consultant can support you in breastfeeding from the breast or from the bottle. They
Yep.
can help you with bottle feeding, and they can also help you with weaning when
Yep.
you get to that part of your journey.
Yep.
It's not just the breastfeeding and on the boob part.
Yes. So she helped me of how I was going to, basically wean off trying to breastfeed and just go, well, then I just pumped for a while. And so she helped me with that journey and then just going to bottle feeding formula because that's essentially all my body could do. And so,
And you worked real hard. Like
Yeah,
you
it's hard
were
work.
pumping like twice a day, and still you were getting like little bits. But
Like,
you were like,
barely
I'm
anything.
determined to give as much breast milk as I can.
because
worked
you
hard.
read these things that like 1 tablespoon of breast milk has, I don't know what it is,
I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff.
but like millions of great
Yeah.
stuff in it. So I was like, at least if my
Yeah.
40 minutes a day that I'm attached to like a cow pumping is worth it for her. And that's what I kept telling myself. But eventually it just wasn't sustainable for my
Yeah.
mental health. So just know that wherever your journey goes, it is okay. It's okay if you only want to try for a couple weeks and then call it quits. It's okay if after a week you were like, this is not working. Like you need to do whatever you need to do, right? And yes, this is a conversation you can have with your spouse, your partner, but ultimately it is your body. So we just want to encourage you to do what is best for you, your body, your mental health, and your baby. So sometimes your spouse may be like, oh, well, I don't want to pay for formula, or like this is literally what your body's made for, just breastfeed. Like you can't always listen to everything they say.
They can breastfeed then.
Yeah, if only that was possible that you could
Yeah.
switch off, that'd be great.
I had so much resentment towards my husband for having what I call decorative nipples.
Well, they are decorative.
I was so annoyed, and he's lovely. He does so much. But I remember one night I sat him down and said, you need to know that I'm frustrated that you cannot breastfeed. And I know biologically, like you cannot carry the baby, but I'm still mad at you about it. And he was like, okay.
It doesn't always make sense what you get mad about, especially in those first few months, and you're just gonna be mad. And but we know so many moms, and we all do things very, very differently.
Yeah.
We know someone who just pumped almost right away. They just pumped, so their baby basically still got breast milk 100% of the time at the beginning, but it was all from pumping and then bottle feeding. Some people do half and half. Some people do 75-25. I ended up going just formula feeding. And then I actually used, because she could feed triplets, I donated
I got
by
you.
Carly's boobs breast milk for Jordan.
Good job, big guys.
Yeah, we always would thank Carly's boobs at night. We'd be like, what are we grateful for tonight? Carly's boobs for getting us some breast milk. And you don't have to, but she was just sick all the time and ended up getting COVID. And we just wanted a bit more of the antibodies, and Carly offered. So we're like, hey, why not give her another bottle a day, right? Like there's just
got
so
good
many
stuff in it.
different ways to do it. So
Special milk.
find what works for you and your family and the situations you are at.
Definitely.
And if you can get the support, great, from a lactation consultant, but It is a bit pricey depending on where you're going, and not a lot of benefits will actually cover it. So it's something that you have to pay out of pocket for. And babies are expensive enough already that it just might not be in the cards for you. But there are some. There's actually one, I think it's called the Boob School or Booby School or something that I follow online. And they have programs that you can buy. And some of them go on sale. So you can pay like $10 or $20 and do like an online course that's actually very educational.
Nice.
So that could be an option if it's something like I can't pay a couple $100 for a home visit for them to come out and see me. But maybe I can learn a bit more about breastfeeding online and watch some videos. And you can do this beforehand, like before baby's even here, maybe kind of get ready for what it might look like.
Ooh, is that an Amazon delivery?
Oh, someone just got an Amazon package.
I don't even know what it is. And if you are planning to breastfeed, I 100% recommend getting to know your titties before.
Yes.
Because in my job, working as a labor and delivery nurse, a lot of times trying to teach people how to breastfeed, they're so uncomfortable handling their own breasts. And even just learning how to hand express, which is when you kind of work the milk out yourself with your hands, is so beneficial. And then if you do have anything like inverted nipples or flat nipples, or if you've had a breast reduction, those are all things that can be huge barriers for people. For breastfeeding. So you can actually get set up with a lactation consultant when you're pregnant, and or even like the internet has lots of information.
Yeah, this is going to be another episode we do. Clearly, we could talk about this for a while. This
We
is
love
like
boobies.
And breastfeeding is a hot topic. Like people get very opinionated out there. And of course, we want to be that safe place that we explore all options. And every option is good. Whatever works for you is going to be a good option. You just need to feed your baby. So we'll talk about it more in depth in another episode. But
Definitely.
I think we'll just move on.
Go on
for
to the
today.
next one.
Yeah.
Temperature. Babies get cold. Really a great segue there. I've been practicing all night for that moment. So babies, they don't regulate their temperature very well. And because of that, grandparents especially think they need to put 700 layers on a baby.
Literally, like every available layer they want to put on your baby.
So many. And actually, a baby that is too warm and overheated, that can actually increase the risk for SIDS, for sudden infant death syndrome. So we're not saying like chill your baby, but you want to be mindful about the room temperature and the layers. So really you only need one more layer than what you're wearing on your baby. So if we were sitting here in t-shirts, we would have baby in maybe like a little onesie and a long sleeve or like a sleeper on top. And once you're indoors, after like the first 24 hours or so, baby doesn't have to be wearing a hat. And you don't need your room temperature to be really, really high. And in our province, I think our recommendation is like 18 to 20 or something degrees Celsius.
It's surprisingly low. And your parents and grandparents are going to be like, that is too low. But it is not. Like, that is what's actually recommended.
Yeah.
It will surprise you.
Spoiler, babies will be fine if they're not wearing socks.
Yeah. That should be a whole episode too.
For your own mental health, do not send a picture or do a video call to any grandparents if your baby's not wearing socks. Because you know what? You just save yourself from it. It's fine.
Speaking from experience here, that was a personal experiences of ours. Okay, but we need to go back to something. Babies wearing toques. So I got called out in the hospital for not having a toque on my baby, and I had no idea what she was talking about. She's like, why don't you have a toque on your baby? I was like, I didn't bring it to you. I don't know. And she's like, your baby needs to have a toque on for the first. I don't even know what she said, but she made me terrified that I was harming my baby by not having a toque on.
You were not.
But I had no idea what she's talking about. No one had ever talked to me about this. So Nurse Carly, tell us what this baby toque thing is all about.
Well, babies lose a lot of temperature from their heads. So you don't want them to get too cold. They also have like a larger surface area compared to adults. So they have a lot more skin. So they lose heat a lot faster. So in the hospital I work in, we put a hat on baby right when they're born. And then we're checking their temperature all the time. We check them at, like the 1 minute, the 1 hour, the 2 hour, the 6 hour, and then once a shift. So like people are monitoring your baby's temperature. But I think in my hospital, we don't actually have a rule of how long they're supposed to wear a hat. It kind of just sounds like you had a judgy nurse. But
I felt like a terrible mom.
Yeah.
It was only like a day into parenthood, and I already felt like I failed.
And some people actually don't believe in wearing hats because they want to be able to smell those beautiful pheromones from baby's head. So as long as your baby feels warm, and if the nurse is checking their temperature and their core temperature is where we want it, then yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but maybe.
Okay, well, just be aware. If you're having a baby, it might be something that you might want to have a toque, or they'll give you a little toque there. And
they get all mungy after a baby's born. They get all the stuff.
So if
on
you
them.
want to bring a
cute one,
it's
I think we had our guy in a toque while he was in the hospital because hospitals are also cold and really drafty. So I think he was in a toque while he was in the hospital, and then once we got home and it wasn't drafty, we didn't have him in a toque anymore.
Okay.
But you don't. I don't know if your baby was cold. Sure, put a toque on, but we don't need people to be judgy.
No, I had no idea, and then I felt bad.
Well, you didn't do anything wrong.
Thank you. Thank you, Nurse Carly.
Yeah, she could have said, "Hey, your baby feels a little cool. Let's put a hat on her."
Yeah, no, it did not happen like that.
No,
but,
I'm sorry.
Okay, now we know maybe for the first little bit, but other than that, if they're on a little bit, like if you had to pick too hot or a little too cold is actually probably going to be the safer option for your baby, which is probably going to go against everything inside you that's telling you need to make sure your baby is warm. But there's also great things out there, like there's a Woolino that we both use for our baby. It's a sleep sack, but it's made of merino wool. So it's supposed to help regulate their temperature. So it's supposed to, if it's too hot, it's supposed to help cool them down a little. If it's too cold, it's supposed to regulate them to be a little bit warmer. So there's really good things out there like that you could look into if you're worried about.
Yeah, I believe that one you can start using it at 2 months. So it wouldn't be immediate.
Wouldn't be the
I'm
newborn.
sure there's merino wool toques you can get for your baby.
I'm sure there's merino wool everything for $1 million.
Yes.
But anyways, there's different products out there that help them regulate their temperature. And like my husband was like, oh, she needs to be in a fleece sleeper every day. And I'd get her sometimes and be like, she is so hot.
Yeah.
Like, so I had to sit him down and explain to him this temperature thing. And again, he was like, really? Like, I thought they always had to be extra warm. And I was like, no, like it's just something that, and we're saying this not judgmentally, it's just something that a lot of people don't know about. I didn't know about. So we are just here to educate and talk about it.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Sleep. Ugh, sleep.
Sleep is a big one, but it's also just one of those things that there's a lot out there on the internet and a lot out there from other parents. And it's another like hot topic, judgy thing about, sleep when the baby's sleeping is something everyone always says, which is inaccurate.
Yeah.
And I've seen some really good memes out there, like sleep when the baby's sleeping. And
they're like emptying the dishwasher and then like.
Yeah. It's quite funny.
Yeah.
But oftentimes your baby's going to need to sleep on you, especially in that first 1 to 2 months that we're talking about. Your baby falls asleep while eating. They need that contact. So you're just going to be snuggling them.
And they also sleep like 20 hours a day when they're newborns. Like, that's a long time.
Yeah. And some babies will not want to be put down. So you probably bought an expensive bassinet or have all of these little like tricks in the snoo and and I bought a few different things. And there was a couple she liked, a couple she hated. But most of the time she would sleep on my husband or I. And that was just.
They love their snuggles.
Yeah, and you can't really fault them. And you do want to snuggle them.
They're so squishable.
So just know that you might not always get time to yourself. You might have to just snuggle your baby. And that's all you do that day is you feed them, you change their diaper, and you let them sleep on you. Yeah. And that's okay. But a big important thing about that is safe sleep.
Yeah, safe sleep. People are so judgy about sleep, which I get because, we want our babies to be safe. But I find just from my experience of being a mom and hearing from my mom friends, a lot of people end up unintentionally co-sleeping. So with baby in their bed, on a chair, on the couch. And it's actually significantly more unsafe to unintentionally co-sleep or bed share than planning to do it safer. So there's no guarantee ever with baby, but you can do things safer. So there's lots of things on the internet. Like there's the Safe Sleep 7 by La Leche League. The hospital I work at on our handout for safe sleep actually now covers how to co-sleep safer. Because whether or not you plan to, you may come across a time when you need to help get you through the night. And if you are going to do it, it's safer to do it intentionally and a safer way than falling asleep with them on the couch.
Like educated, if you need to be educated. And I can tell you 100% with certainty that I was not going to co-sleep. Like that was 100% off the table in our relationship for lots of reasons that I won't go into, but that was not going to happen. So I was kind of like, well, why? I don't need to know about co-sleeping. Yeah. Like anytime it came up, I would next. I never read it because what was the point? I wasn't going to do it. And then I fell asleep on the couch holding my baby when she was sleeping. And I was like, oh crap, like that, you're not supposed to do that. And couches are actually very unsafe. If once you read the co-sleeping, couches are very unsafe because of how soft they are. They have the different crevices and pillows and it can be really unsafe. And so my husband and I both read the safe co-sleeping, because we just needed to be educated. Because if it's going to happen, we want to make sure that we're going to do it the safest way.
And often if it is going to happen, it's going to be at 4 a.m. out of necessity.
Yes.
So for us, same way, I never wanted to co-sleep. I like no judgment or shame to people who do. I just, with my anxiety, I could not even like get close to falling asleep while holding him until the 4-month sleep regression. And then I was actually falling asleep holding him in bed. And I was like, this is way more unsafe than if I intentionally co-sleep. So for a few nights we did bed share, and the husband got kicked out to the spare room. So I slept in the middle of the king size bed.
Yep.
We took off the memory foam topper. Like we did what we could to make it safer. And it was actually really nice.
I know. And I know so many moms are like, I'm never going to co-sleep. And depending on all of the different reasons, like there's lots out there. And like,
we got a kitty friend. He likes to co-sleep.
Yes.
He likes
Cats
to sleep
and dogs,
on my head.
they love to co-sleep. So anyways, there's lots of like real reasons why you're not going to co-sleep, but it just happens. And it'll like come out of the blue when they have a sleep regression, whatever, especially in those first few months when you're exhausted and they won't sleep unless you're holding them. It's just better to be educated. So even if this is not in your plan, if your like plan for parenting doesn't include co-sleeping, still read up on it, still learn, make sure you and your partner are both educated so that you can do it safe when and or if it ever happens.
Yeah. And then aside from that, for newborns, getting them to sleep, what I found really helpful was kind of recreating like a womb environment. So having the white noise, having obviously a dark room, and our guy loved to be swaddled. And he also really liked the soother, and the swaddle and the soother together with the white noise was like key for us to get him to sleep. If we ever put him down in his bassinet unswaddled, he just freaked out. So find out what works for your baby. There's lots of different
soothers didn't work for us. So some soothers work, some don't. Like babies are all very different. So you just have to find what works for you. But the main point just being be educated on all the different types of sleep, because you just never know what's going to happen, where life's going to take you. And the first few months are hard, and getting them to sleep is also hard.
Yeah. What did you use?
Well, my favorite thing was an exercise ball, which is the weirdest thing. And we had bought it just for like us to actually exercise with a few months before. Like we didn't buy it for the baby. We just happened to have one for actual like exercise purposes. And a few people had told us like, oh, it's good for babies. And so we started bouncing her to sleep. And within seconds of bouncing on the ball, like you obviously hold her, you're not letting her little head flip everywhere, but it knocked her out. And we still used it to this day. So like 7 months later, the exercise ball is still in her room. We still bounce her to sleep if we need to. And they just love movement. And I think it's recreating that womb like you talked about. So you kind of you got to find what works for you. You always baby wore. So make sure you have a baby carrier.
The carrier. And then on the exercise ball. That was like my go-to in the middle of the night when he was like, I want a party.
Yeah.
Into the baby carrier, onto the exercise ball, white noise, soother.
Yeah.
It was great. He loved it.
It's so funny because all babies are very different. And I know someone who tried the exercise ball. She's like, nope, baby hated it. I was like, okay,
really?
it was good to try, right? And rocking chairs, like, it didn't work for us in the first, like the newborn stage rocking chair didn't work for us. It was comfy for us, but did nothing for her.
She's like,
whereas
give me that
the exercise ball did. So it is hard, especially after a C-section. I was like, I don't have a core and I'm trying to jump, but you find what you got to do. And sometimes that meant we took her for car rides. Yeah. You got to do what you got to do. And if in the end that means you have to go for a car ride, you do what you have to do to get your baby to sleep for your mental health. Like you're going to just find the things that you need to do.
Stroller ride, baby wearing, even just carrying them around. Like a baby knows, this baby knows. Yes. Baby.
Okay, come here.
We have a cat friend.
Yeah.
Babies know when you sit down. So they'll be happy in your arms. And the second you sit down, they're like, wah! Like they just know. They like the movement. They like the rhythmic flow. They want to be back in that womb.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to be able to see me right now because Toby's
kitty
hanging
boy.
out.
He's like, I'm the original baby.
Yeah. So just try different things, especially in that first month. Just try all the different things, the baby wearing. I tried a few different carriers and then I found the one that worked best that without a doubt, if I put her in it and walked for 5 minutes, she was asleep. I hate to tell you, that doesn't happen anymore. At 7 months, she will just be wide awake. And I'm like, go to sleep,
trying to
please.
take in the whole world.
So as they get older, things will change.
And as soon as you find something that works, all of a sudden baby's like, spoiler, I don't like that anymore.
Yeah. But, just find some of those options. And exercise balls, they're not super expensive. So you can use it and try it. And it's pretty inexpensive to try. Some baby carriers get really expensive. Yeah. So
You can buy them used. You can borrow them from friends. One of my friends, she bought me, her and a couple of friends bought me a baby carrier for my baby shower. And then she also lent me another one she had, which was great.
Well, because you can try out different ones and find what you actually like. Then maybe you can invest some money.
Yeah.
So they are just unpredictable little things.
Yeah, you never know what they're going to give you. As soon as you find something that works, they're like, no, we don't like that anymore. That's so last week.
So last week, how dare you try it again?
Exactly.
So you just have to keep going through and you're going to be like, okay, we're going to try this. Nope, that didn't work this. And you go down a little list. It seemed like, they're crying. What am I going to do? Okay, we're going to feed them. Oh, that didn't work. Are you tired? Are we going to get you to sleep? No, that didn't work. Do we need to change your diaper? Like you just have these little lists that you're going to go through. And some weeks option 1 might help. Some weeks you might have to get to option 3 till it helps.
17.
Yeah. 100. Like you just have to keep trying and it does get easier. But these first newborn days are just hard. And one of the biggest points, and this is our last one for today's episode, is just how you might not have any idea what you are doing and that is okay. They might not feel like you might not have this instant connection that everything your baby needs exactly when they need it. And that is okay. It doesn't make you a bad mom. It doesn't make you a bad person because you didn't feel instantly this love and this intuition that
I remember thinking, like, who is this stranger screaming at me at 4 a.m? And I did feel some of that, like, immediate love, but I still was like, why are you yelling at me, brah? Like, what do you want? And
whose baby is this?
Yeah, like, when are their parents coming home? Like, I felt that all the time. Like, okay, who's coming to pick up this child? Like, it can't be mine.
Yeah.
But I actually had a close friend who said, she didn't really feel that like bond and connection. For her, it was like a very slow burn. And until he started like smiling and like actually doing things. So I think it was a couple of months. And like, that's a long time to be caring for another human being when you don't feel that connection. And I feel like that is actually way more common than people let on.
Because no one wants to admit it out loud because they think people will judge them and shame them for it and all the guilt that comes around. But I know another mom, it was a year. Their baby wasn't till the baby turned a year. Then she was like, I unconditionally love my child. And it's not that they didn't love them, but she just didn't have that
connection, that bond. They felt like a stranger.
And that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you
normal.
It makes you human.
Oh my gosh. That was not planned.
No. Yeah.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
So just it's going to be a different experience for everyone. And if there's one thing that we can say, which brings us to our Mom Day mantra. Okay, you do it today.
So our Mom Day mantra, every week we kind of have a little statement just to kind of bring back a little bit more joy.
Yep.
And babies are very unpredictable. They're different. Everything is hard. So we just want to say your baby and relationship with them is unique and extraordinarily beautiful.
It is. It's going to be so different from anyone else's. What works for your baby is different than what works for your friend's baby. Your relationship with your baby might look different than your friend's relationship with their baby.
Or even if you already have another baby, like every baby is different and your relationship will be different with your baby than your spouse.
It is unique. And that is why we say your baby and your relationship with them is unique and extraordinarily beautiful. It is beautiful. It might be messy and hard.
There are little snowflakes.
And you might not have any idea what to do, but it is still beautiful in the end. And it is unique to you. So just try to find the joy and the pleasure in that sentiment, right?
Definitely.
So if you're watching on YouTube, if you want to like and subscribe, or if you are listening to our podcast and you want to subscribe to us, that way you can join us every Monday.
I think you mean Mom Day.
Oh, every Mom Day, yes.
Where you can hear us skip the small talk.
And dive straight into the uncomfortable.
Get into the nitty gritty.
See you next week. Bye.
Ciao.